Hello guys, you're welcome back to Academics, and in today's class we shall be talking about photosynthesis. Now, first of all, let us divide this word into two so that we can properly understand what photosynthesis is. So we have the first word, photo, which could be represented as light, and then we have the second word, synthesis, which simply means to build up. So in general, photosynthesis simply means using light to build up, and mostly this is found in green plants because they possess the green pigments known as chlorophyll. So photosynthesis is the process by which plants produce their own food using energy from the sun. There are certain conditions necessary for photosynthesis to take place. The first condition, we have one, there must be light. The second condition, we have chlorophyll. Then we have water, and we have carbon dioxide or carbon dioxide. Okay, so these are the major conditions necessary for photosynthesis to occur. All right, so let's quickly use a diagram to explain this further. Now, from this diagram is a plant that is doing so well. So we have the sun's ray at this point shining upon this plant, and then we have the roots deeply found inside the soil, and from here the roots can trap water. And then we have the leaves. On the leaves we have tiny pores, which is called stomata. So the stomata helps to take in CO2. So we have mentioned three things now: the sun, which provides solar energy. Then we have the roots, which helps to trap the water in the soil. Then we have the leaves, which helps to take in CO2 through the stomata. Now, when photosynthesis occurs, when CO2 is taken in by the plants, oxygen is removed. So as CO2 is going in, oxygen is leaving. So oxygen is removed as a byproduct. So this is basically the basic understanding of photosynthesis. But then there are two stages in photosynthesis. We have the light stage and the dark stage. Remember, we mentioned that there are two stages in photosynthesis. The first stage we have is the light stage, or what we call light dependent stage. And then we have the second stage, which we call the dark stage or light independent. The dark stage or light independent stage. Now, what this simply is trying to say is the light stage occurs in the presence of light, and the dark stage occurs in the absence of light. So let us use a diagram to further explain the light and the dark stage. So this is a diagram that represents the light and the dark stage. On here that we have the sun is the light stage, and this part of the diagram where we don't have the sun is the dark stage. So what is basically happening here? First, we have labeled and given these numbers to represent them. So let us quickly explain what the numbers mean. So we have number 3, which represents the chloroplast. Now the chloroplast is that organelle that contains chlorophyll, which is able to trap the sun's energy to manufacture food by green plants. Then we have number 2, which is representing the stroma. Just imagine the stroma to be like the cytoplasm of a cell. It is that space, that liquid part of the chloroplast. Then we have number 1, which represents the thylakoid. Now the thylakoid is that place where light reactions occur. The thylakoid, when they are stacked together, is known as the grana. So I'll write that down, the grana. So you can also basically say that the light reaction happens in the grana, while the dark reaction happens in the stroma. So remember again, the thylakoid is where the light reactions occur, and thylakoids in stacks, that is when they are packed on each other like you can see in the diagram, they are known as the grana. Okay, good. Now that we have explained our label, now let us quickly explain what is going on in this diagram. First, the sun's energy. So the sun provides the energy into this system, and it is trapped by the chlorophyll. And also you can see introduction of water, which we have explained how it gets into the system through the roots of the plants. And in all, this comes together, and what we call photolysis or photolysis occurs, that is splitting of water. It is part of what the sun's energy is also used for at this stage. And at this point, we also have the NADP plus, all right, being reduced to NADPH. Now the NADP plus is actually an electron carrier, which helps to introduce electrons into the dark stage. And also at the same point, ATP is produced in the light stage. ATP, of course, you know, is adenosine triphosphate. That is the form of energy used by organisms. Then we are going to have this ATP also being used in the dark stage. But then if you notice, there is movement of oxygen out of the system. So oxygen is released at the light reaction stage. So we have light from the energy from the sun, water, all coming together to react, reducing NADP plus, an electron carrier, to NADPH, all right, which will be used in the dark stage, and also production of ATP. And at the end of it all, oxygen is released as a byproduct. So this is basically what happens in the light stage. So first, one of the products here, which is a byproduct, is oxygen. So oxygen is the product here. Also, we have NADPH, which has NADP plus, which has been reduced to NADPH, and we also have ATP. But then as oxygen leaves the system, ATP and NADPH is now introduced into the dark stage, where we have the Calvin cycle. All right, this also now goes together, and at this point in the dark stage, there is introduction of CO2. Remember, CO2 is now introduced into the system in the dark stage. Also, ATP is the driving force behind the dark stage, because ATP provides the energy needed to carry out these processes. So CO2 gets into the system, assimilation of CO2 into the system is happening in the dark stage. At the end of it all, CO2 is now reduced to what? Sugar. So production of food is done in the dark stage. And what is the driving force here? ATP. What is the electron carrier here? NADPH. And when this happens, finally NADPH is further reconverted back to NADP plus, and also our ATP is further reconverted to ADP. All right, so ADP is adenosine diphosphate, all right, plus phosphate group when added to it to make it adenosine triphosphate. So this is actually a cycle. So when we come, let us quickly make a recap of what happens in the light stage. One, there is trapping of the sun's energy, introduction of water, and then we have reduction of the NADP plus to NADPH, and also the production of ATP using ADP and a phosphate group to give us adenosine triphosphate, and oxygen is released as a byproduct. Now NADPH and ATP is introduced into the dark stage where they go into the Calvin cycle, and ATP being the power engine that powers this process, to have also introduction of CO2 in the dark stage, and is further reduced towards sugar. That is the food produced by the what? By the plants. All right, when this occurs, our NADPH is further reconverted back to NADP plus, and our ATP is also taken back to ADP plus phosphate group. All right, so this is basically the light and dark reaction stages of photosynthesis. I hope you enjoyed this class, and if you need further clarifications, please share with us in the comment section.